My husband told the doctors he couldn't cancel his Maui vacation while I was having a heart attack. I was lying in the emergency room, wires attached to my chest, oxygen mask over my face, monitors beeping in a rhythm that told the medical staff my heart was failing, and my husband said he had travel plans. The nurse who told me this later, when I was stable enough to hear it, could barely get the words out. "Mrs. Morrison, I have to tell you something. When we called your emergency contact, your husband, he said—" She paused, her face twisted with discomfort. "He said he couldn't come because you have a trip to Maui in 5 days." "He said what?" "We explained the severity of the situation. We told him you had suffered a major cardiac event. We told him you might not survive the night." She looked at her hands. "He asked if there was someone else who could come instead. And then? And then he said he would check in when he got back from vacation. He asked us to text him updates." I stared at the ceiling of my hospital room. 43 years of marriage. 43 years of building a life together. And when I was dying, my husband asked for text updates so he wouldn't miss his flight. "Mrs. Morrison?" The nurse's voice was gentle. "Is there someone else we can call? Family? Friends?" "No," I said quietly. "There's no one else." Because the person who should have been there, the person I had given my entire life to, had chosen a beach vacation over watching me die. My name is Vivian Okafor Morrison. I am 64 years old. I was born in Benin City, Nigeria, and I came to America at 21 with a business degree and dreams of building something meaningful. I met Richard Morrison in my first year at a consulting firm in Chicago. He was charming, ambitious, handsome, everything a young woman from Nigeria could hope for in an American husband. We married after 2 years of dating, and I spent the next 4 decades being the perfect wife. I supported his career. I raised our 3 children. I managed our household. I entertained his clients. I smiled at his jokes. I pretended not to notice when he stayed late at the office. I looked the other way when credit card bills showed dinners I wasn't present for. I sacrificed my own ambitions, my own career, my own identity, all for a man who couldn't be bothered to cancel a vacation when I was dying. But here's what Richard didn't know. Here's what no one knew. While I was being the perfect wife, I was also being very, very careful. Let me tell you about the money. When Richard and I got married, I insisted on one thing. I would manage the household finances. Richard thought this was quaint, traditional. The wife handling the checkbook while the husband earned the real money. He had no idea what I was actually doing. From our very first year of marriage, I set aside a portion of everything. Not much at first, just a few $100s here and there, money I saved from the grocery budget, from household expenses, from the allowance Richard gave me like I was a child. Over time, those small amounts grew. I opened accounts in my name only. I invested carefully, conservatively, letting compound interest do its work over decades. When I went back to work after the children were grown, "Just a little job to keep you busy," Richard called it. I saved almost everything I earned. He never asked about my salary. He assumed it was negligible. He had no idea I had risen to become a senior partner at a boutique financial consulting firm, earning more than he did. I kept 2 sets of books, in a way. The life Richard saw, the modest wife, the supportive partner, the woman who deferred to her husband in all things. The life I was building, a financial fortress that would protect me if the day ever came when I needed to walk away. I never planned to use it. I thought Richard loved me, in his way. I thought we would grow old together. I thought 43 years of marriage meant something. And then I had a heart attack, and he went to Maui. The heart attack happened on a Tuesday. I was in my office reviewing client portfolios when I felt the pressure in my chest. At first, I thought it was stress. I had been working long hours and the quarter was ending, but then the pain spread to my jaw, my arm, my back. I knew the signs. I pressed the emergency button under my desk, the one my assistant had insisted I install after I turned 60, and I collapsed. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. I was in surgery within the hour. The doctors saved my life. But when they called Richard to tell him his wife had nearly died, he checked his calendar. "We have Maui in 5 days," he said. Not "I'm on my way." Not "Is she okay?" Not "What can I do?" Just, "We have Maui in 5 days." The "we" was Richard and our son Derek. They had planned this trip for months, A father-son bonding experience, Richard called it. Golf, surfing, expensive dinners, a celebration of Derek's recent promotion. Apparently, a celebration that couldn't be interrupted by his mother's potential death. The doctors tried again. Mr. Morrison, your wife has suffered a significant cardiac event. She's in critical condition. We strongly recommend you come to the hospital immediately. Can't you just keep her stable until we get back? It's only 10 days. Sir, with all due respect, she could die. This isn't something that can wait. A long pause on the phone. Then Richard's voice, slightly annoyed. Fine, text me if anything changes, but I'm not canceling this trip. Vivienne would understand. She knows how much this means to Derek. He hung up, and I, lying in my hospital bed, heard every word. Because the doctor had put the call on speaker. He wanted me to hear what my husband said. He wanted me to understand exactly who I had married. The first 3 days were critical. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my body fighting to survive while my mind processed what I had heard. Richard didn't come. Derek didn't come. My other children, Sarah, who lived in Boston, and Michael, who lived in Seattle, flew in within hours of being notified. They sat by my bedside, held my hand, cried when they thought I was asleep. How could Dad do this? Sarah whispered to Michael on the second night, thinking I couldn't hear. How could he just leave her? You know how he is. Everything is about him. It's always been about him. But this is Mom. She could have died. I know. Michael's voice was thick with anger. When he gets back, I'm going to... Don't, I said, my voice hoarse. They both jumped. Mom, you're awake. I've been awake for a while. I opened my eyes and looked at my children. These two who had come, who had prioritized me, who understood what family meant. Don't confront your father, not yet. But Mom, I need you to do something for me. Both of you. Can you do that? Anything. I need you to go to my office. There's a safe in the closet behind my coats. The combination is your grandmother's birthday. Bring me everything inside. They exchanged glances. What's in the safe, Mom? My future, I said, and possibly yours if you want it. By day 5, I was stable enough to sit up and review documents. The safe had contained everything I needed: account statements, investment portfolios, property deeds, and most importantly, the documentation I had been gathering for the past 5 years. You see, I had suspected Richard was cheating for decades. I had looked the other way because I had children to raise, a household to maintain, a life that seemed too complicated to dismantle. But 5 years ago, when the children were grown and I had time to think, I hired a private investigator. What he found was worse than I had imagined. Richard hadn't just been cheating, he had a second family. A woman named Jennifer, 34 years old, and 2 children, twins, aged 8, who called my husband Daddy. He had bought them a house, a car. He paid for private school tuition, all with money that should have been ours. I had documentation of everything: financial records, photographs, even recordings of phone calls he thought were private. I had been waiting for the right moment to use it. I never imagined the right moment would come while I was recovering from a heart attack my husband couldn't be bothered to witness. Richard and Derek returned from Maui on day 11. By then I had been discharged from the hospital and was recovering at Sarah's house in Boston. I had left no note. I had left no forwarding address. I had simply disappeared. Richard called my phone 17 times that first day. I didn't answer. He called Sarah. She told him I was resting and couldn't be disturbed. He called Michael. Michael told him to go to hell. Finally, on day 3 of his return, Richard received a different kind of communication. A letter from my lawyer, the divorce petition, the financial disclosure, requirements, and the subpoena for records related to Jennifer Matthews and her children. I'm told he went pale when he read it. I'm told he sat down heavily in his office chair and didn't speak for 10 minutes. I'm told that when he finally found his voice, he said, "She knows. She knows everything." Yes, Richard, I knew. I had known for 5 years, and now everyone else was about to know too. The divorce proceedings were brutal for Richard. He'd expected to fight over assets, to argue about division of property, to use his expensive lawyers to minimize what I would receive. He didn't expect me to already have what was mine. You see, while I was being the perfect wife, I had also been very carefully separating our finances. The accounts I had built over 43 years were in my name only, funded by money I had earned or saved from household budgets. The investments I had made were in trusts that predated our marriage complications. The properties I had quietly purchased, 3 rental units in Chicago, a vacation home in Michigan, were legally mine alone. Richard's lawyers argued that marital assets should be split evenly. My lawyers presented 43 years of financial records showing that I had built my own wealth, separate from anything Richard had contributed. They also presented the evidence of his second family, the house he had bought for Jennifer, $450,000, the car, $65,000, the private school tuition, $40,000 per year for 8 years, the vacations, the gifts, the monthly support payments, another $300,000 over the years. In total, Richard had diverted over $1.2 million of what should have been marital assets to his secret family. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice cold, "you abandoned your wife while she was having a heart attack to take a vacation. You have maintained a second family for nearly a decade, funded by marital assets. And now you have the audacity to ask this court to split what remains evenly?" Richard's lawyer tried to object. The judge cut him off. "In my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a clear case of marital misconduct. Mrs. Morrison is entitled to her separate property, which she has meticulously documented, plus a significant portion of the marital assets to compensate for Mr. Morrison's financial infidelity. She awarded me 75% of everything. The house we had lived in for 30 years, Richard's retirement accounts, his investment portfolio, his share of the business he had thought was his legacy. By the time the divorce was final, Richard had lost almost everything, and I had more than I had ever imagined. But the money wasn't the point. The point was what came next. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Richard tried to see me. He showed up at Sarah's house, where I was still living while I figured out my next chapter. I watched him through the window, this man I had loved for 43 years, this man who had chosen a vacation over my life, this man who had maintained a second family while I kept his home and raised his children. He looked old, defeated, lost. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, but mostly I just felt tired. "Mom?" Sarah appeared beside me. "Do you want me to tell him to leave?" "No, I'll talk to him." "You don't have to." "I know, but I need to. For myself." I walked to the front door and opened it. Richard stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. "Vivian, you look good. I'm recovering, slowly. Can I come in?" "No." He flinched. "I just want to talk. To explain." "Explain what? Explain why you went to Maui while I was dying? Explain why you kept a second family for 9 years? Explain why 43 years of marriage meant so little to you?" "I made mistakes. You made choices. Every day for years you made choices. You chose to lie. You chose to steal from our marriage. You chose to build a life with another woman while I kept your home and raised your children." I shook my head. "And when it mattered most, when I was in a hospital bed, when doctors were telling you I might not survive, you chose a vacation. I didn't think it was that serious. The doctors told you I could die. They said those exact words. And you said you had Maui in 5 days." Richard's face crumpled. "I was scared," he whispered. "I didn't want to face it. I thought if I just went on the trip, somehow everything would be okay when I got back. That's not how life works, Richard. You don't get to ignore dying wives and expect them to be waiting when you return." I know that now. But Vivienne, please, can't we work through this? We have 43 years together, 3 children, grandchildren. Doesn't that mean anything?" I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years, and I realized something. I didn't hate him. I didn't even really feel angry anymore. I just felt done. "It meant everything to me," I said quietly. "For 43 years, our marriage was my whole life. I built everything around you, your career, your comfort, your happiness. I sacrificed my own ambitions, my own identity, my own dreams, because I believed in us, because I thought we were partners. We were partners. Partners don't keep second families. Partners don't choose vacations over medical emergencies. Partners don't treat their spouse like an afterthought for 4 decades. I can change. Maybe you can, but not with me, not for me. I stepped back toward the door. Goodbye, Richard. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, but you won't find it here. I closed the door, and I didn't look back. The new chapter started slowly. I recovered from the heart attack. I sold the house that held too many memories. I used some of the money to buy a beautiful condo in a high-rise with views of Lake Michigan. I used more of it to do something I had always dreamed about but never had the courage to pursue. I started a foundation, the Okafor Women's Financial Independence Initiative, named after my mother, who had taught me to always have my own money, my own accounts, my own escape route. The foundation provides financial literacy education to women, especially immigrant women, women in difficult marriages, women who have been taught that their value lies in their service to others. We teach them to save. We teach them to invest. We teach them to build their own financial fortress, just like I did. We teach them that they are worth more than their usefulness to someone else. In the 2 years since I started the foundation, we've helped over 3,000 women. Some of them are still in their marriages, but now they have resources of their own. Some of them have left situations that were hurting them. Some of them have started businesses, bought homes, sent their children to college. All of them have learned the lesson that took me 43 years to fully understand. You cannot depend on anyone else for your survival, not even the person you love, not even the person who promised to be there in sickness and in health, especially not someone who would choose Maui over your deathbed. Derek, the son who went to Maui with Richard, called me 6 months after the divorce. "Mom, I need to apologize." "Do you?" "I should have been there. When you had the heart attack, I should have told Dad we needed to cancel the trip. I should have come to the hospital." "Why didn't you?" A long pause. "Because Dad said you would be fine. Because he said you were overreacting. Because he said—" Derek's voice broke. "Because he said you always made everything about yourself, and this was probably just another way to get attention." I closed my eyes. Even in my near death, Richard had found a way to make me the villain. "I believed him," Derek continued. "I believed him because it was easier than believing my mother was actually dying. I was a coward, Mom, and I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. Can you forgive me? I'm working on it. It's harder than I thought it would be. I understand. I want you to know that I see now. I see what Dad is. I see what he did to you, and I'm not going to be like him. I hope that's true, Derek, for your sake and for the sake of anyone you love. It is. I promise. Then we'll work on rebuilding, slowly, but you need to understand something." "What?" "I'm not the mother who sacrifices everything anymore. I'm not the woman who puts everyone else's needs above her own. I've spent 43 years being that person, and it nearly killed me, literally. So if you want a relationship with me, it has to be with who I am now, not who I used to be. Who are you now?" I thought about it. I'm someone who finally knows her worth, and I'm not willing to settle for less than I deserve ever again. Richard married Jennifer 8 months after our divorce was finalized. I saw the announcement in the society pages, a small ceremony, just family and close friends. The twins were flower girls. Derek was not invited. Apparently, Richard had decided that his new family was more important than the children from his first marriage, the ones he had raised, the ones who bore his name. Sarah called me when she saw the announcement. "Can you believe this? He's been divorced for 8 months and he's already married to his mistress?" "I can believe it. He was always going to choose her. That's who he is." "Aren't you angry?" "No, I'm relieved. He's her problem now." "What do you mean?" "Jennifer thinks she won. She thinks she got the man, the successful businessman, the charming husband. But she got him at the end, when the money is gone and the health is failing and the charm is worn thin. She got the Richard I spent 43 years supporting, without any of the benefits." That's kind of poetic. It's reality. Richard never learned how to be alone. He needed someone to take care of him, to manage his life, to make him feel important. I did it for 43 years. Now Jennifer gets to do it. You almost sound sorry for her. I am, in a way. She thinks she's getting a prize. She's actually getting a burden. And what are you getting, Mom? I looked around my beautiful condo, at the lake shimmering outside my window, at the stack of thank you letters from women my foundation had helped, at the life I was finally, at 64, building for myself. "I'm getting freedom," I said. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm getting to be exactly who I am." Last month, I had a follow-up with my cardiologist. "Your heart is strong," she said, smiling at the results. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm living," I told her. "Actually living instead of just surviving." "Well, it's working. Your numbers are better than they've been in years." I walked out of the hospital that day and stood in the sunshine for a long moment. 2 years ago, I had almost died in a hospital bed while my husband chose a vacation. Now I was healthier than I had been in decades, running a foundation that helped thousands of women, and finally at peace. Richard had thought my heart attack would be an inconvenience. Instead, it was a liberation. The worst day of my life had become the first day of my real life, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to lose everything to find yourself. Like and subscribe for more stories about survival, strength, and the power of knowing you deserve better. We have Maui in 5 days. That's what my husband said when doctors called to tell him I was having a heart attack. She could die, they warned him. He still went. He and our son flew to Hawaii while I lay in a hospital bed, fighting for my life. They posted vacation photos while I was learning to walk again. They sipped cocktails on the beach while I wondered if my husband of 43 years had ever loved me at all. When they came back, I was gone. The house was empty. The accounts were closed. The divorce papers were waiting. And so was the evidence of his second family, the woman and children he had been hiding for 9 years. We have Maui in 5 days. Those 6 words cost him everything: his marriage, his money, his reputation, his relationship with his children, all because he thought a vacation was more important than his dying wife. He made his choice, and I made mine.